The Bat Conservation Trust is the only conservation charity in the UK solely dedicated to bats and the landscapes that support them. One such landscape or habitat is the built environment, and in 2007 the Bat Conservation Trust realised there was a need for a specific project that looked at the challenges but also the opportunities the built environment posed for our bat species. My name is Jo Ferguson, I'm the Built Environment Manager for the Bat Conservation Trust, and it's my job to work with industry to find solutions. For the 17 species of bat that breed in the UK, our built structures offer a safe, warm and stable place to live, especially as the majority of their natural roosting sites in caves or veteran trees have sadly been lost. Alongside which has there been a loss of their food source of insects due to factors such as urbanisation, intensive agriculture and light pollution. This has meant dramatic declines to bat populations over the last century that are only now beginning to stabilise, but the numbers are way below original levels. This is extremely worrying because bats are an indicator species. A healthy bat population indicates the local environment is functioning properly for the species inhabiting it, which includes us. Access to a good quality natural environment affects things such as our physical and mental well-being, which relates to issues such as poor productivity and attendance at work or school, and even recovery time in hospital. Bats are also great at helping to control pest species. In the US, estimates are that bats contribute $23 billion to agricultural pest suppression. This is why all British bats and their roosts are fully protected under the law. The legislation protects both bats and their roosting sites against disturbance and destruction, and for roost sites this can be whether the bats are present or not. Prosecution now includes the use of the Proceeds of Crime Act, which seeks to ensure that offenders do not benefit from criminal behaviour, and therefore the profit gained from not doing the bat survey or mitigation work properly on a roost is confiscated. This wipes out any financial gain, but also creates a coherent framework by which judges can set their fines without having knowledge of potentially complex conservation elements to the case. For example, how important a single roosting site may be to a bat or bat species. But what do we mean when we talk about a protected roost? We are describing any structure or place which a bat or many bats use for shelter or protection, and this is then protected under the legislation whether bats are present at the time or not, such as the importance to bats of a particular roost at a particular time of year. Bats choose roosting sites depending on temperature requirements. In the summer, they are looking for warmer roosts for their fearless offspring to be born into. But in winter, bats can drop their body temperature down to the surrounding temperature of a humid and consistently cold roost to go into hibernation. This saves them energy and loss of body fat warming themselves, and they can drop their body temperatures to as low as 2 degrees. Our built structures often fulfil these requirements. Our 5 most common species all have roosts associated with built structures in their life cycle. It may seem odd that bats who suffer easily from disturbance by humans would choose to roost so closely with us, but coupled with the loss of roosting habitat, built structures are more and more being sited next to or in suitable feeding areas, which have a high number of insects, such as woods or waterways. Buildings offer cleaner, warmer, drier and essentially better roosting habitat. Bats that roost in built structures fall into 2 main types. Crevice dwellers, such as the 2 most widespread pipistrelle species, are the ones you're most likely to see flying in our built environment. However, as they roost in the external facades of buildings, people are often unaware that they are present. They can access gaps as small as an adult thumb and certainly in small numbers usually go unnoticed. Especially as bats do not make nests. They do not create mess or do things like chew wiring. They are very unobtrusive and often missed. The second type of bats are roofoid dwelling species. Species such as the brown long-eared roost at the top of the roof, so they are often the ones that people encounter when accessing roof spaces for maintenance or in their own homes. They often cling to the wood running through the middle of the roof structure. Again, these species can access these areas by crawling through small gaps, but like to hang out in the open, and this is why they are frequently spotted by homeowners. Given what we have already seen, there is obviously a great deal of opportunity for bats throughout our built environment. There are a number of features within ordinary homes and offices where bats may roost, and this does show how porous our built structures are for our 17 breeding bat species. Pipistrelle species may roost behind lifted fascia boards or in cavity walls, accessed via gaps in mortar. Brown long-eared may access the roof void under lifted tiles where the lining is missing, or through soffit boards which lead to roof areas. Given the numerous places within buildings bats may be, and the fact that bats are fully protected under the legislation, specialist survey techniques and knowledge must be employed to assess the impact building works, such as re-roofing or repointing brickwork, could have upon them. Luckily for homeowners, the Bat Conservation Trust has a free advice service through the National Bat Helpline and a wealth of information online. For small-scale works, free advice can also be provided to allow these works to go ahead legally while protecting the bats. For large-scale works, an ecological consultant will be required. Either way, as soon as a building or development work is planned for any site, an ecological appraisal should be done. An initial survey of a site can be carried out at any time of year. This will flag up potential for the presence of bats and the need for any further surveys. Potential for bats would include suitable roosting features in a structure with good links to feeding areas. This triggers the need for certain bat surveys by experienced individuals with specialist equipment such as bat detectors, which record the bat's echolocation calls. And this has to be done when bats are likely to be occupying the structure, for example, between May and August, to record the evidence of maternity roosts when mothers have given birth to their young. Once the information on the roost is recorded, then the bat ecologist can help guide the development or building works so that the bats aren't harmed and that the legislation is adhered to. Often this means carrying out work at a certain time of year under a licence. It can also include making provision for some species of bats within an existing or new build using bat boxes. Bat boxes that replicate crevice roosting sites for some bat species can be incorporated into or attached onto buildings. The Bat Conservation Trust Roost partnership works with bat box manufacturers to improve bat access product details, and Bat Conservation Trust website has information on homemade and shop-bought types of boxes, their suitability for certain species, and where to site them. Bat boxes and planting for insects are also an excellent way to improve a site for bats that currently has little value for wildlife. The Bat Conservation Trust also provide best practice advice to industry through the Bats in the Built Environment for Building Professionals training course. The aim of this course is to give a general picture of bats' complicated life cycle, their need for a variety of conditions at different times of year, in order to understand more fully the implications of working on buildings where they might be roosting. We look particularly at bats in relation to buildings, the how or the when they use them, trying to ensure that participants are aware of their responsibility with regard to bats. It includes a fieldwork task which gives guidance on how to recognise the basic signs of potential roosts, and specific case studies are discussed. The first remote version of this course will be run over 2 afternoons on the 12th and 16th of November. Today I've shown how bats can be taken into account during your build or renovation project by considering them from the outset. This protects both the bats and yourself. Remember, the presence of bats does not prevent work from being undertaken, but you do need to plan well ahead. Beware of potential for bats in any structure. We're ruling them out, not in. Bats' roosts are protected even when bats are not present, and if in doubt, seek advice from the National Bat Helpline on 0345 1300 228. To find out more about any of this and to get further information sent to you, please visit the Bat Conservation Trust stand 190.